I've hit SSL 12 times, and I've coached players from bronze all the way up to SSL. And over the years, there's one thing that never changes. Most players focus on the wrong stuff when they're trying to improve. And I get it, you see super high ranked players doing extremely mechanical plays, so you think mechanics must be what's separating them from me. But that's just not true. Reality is, I've seen super mechanical players hard stuck in Champ 1, and I've seen players with no mechanics in SSL, just by understanding how the game works. And that's why so many people get stuck for months or even years at the exact same rank, because they're putting all of their energy into mechanics while ignoring the other parts of the game that actually make the biggest difference. If you're trying to rank up by grinding training packs all day but still losing, it's because you're focusing on the wrong problem. And if you watch this video until the end, you'll know exactly why you're stuck, and more importantly, how to fix it. And I'll break it down in a way that actually makes sense so you can start improving today. In this video, I'm going to tell you 3 things that are holding you back in Rocket League. The first thing holding you back is bad rotation. If you have insane mechanics, but you can't even rotate properly, you'll always feel like you're chasing the play instead of controlling it. And you've probably had games where you thought you were playing really well, but your team still ends up losing. Maybe you hit some solid shots, maybe you had some really nice touches, but somehow you were always in really awkward situations, scrambling on defense, or just missing out on plays. And that's not a mechanics issue, it's simply a positioning issue. I see this mistake all the time. Players are either rotating too slow or too wide, thinking they're playing safe when in reality, they're just taking themselves out of the game. When you rotate too wide, you're creating unnecessary space, which just lets your opponent recover, reset, and then attack you again. And when you rotate too slow, you're forcing your teammates into 1v2 situations that never should have happened in the first place. One of the most common rotation habits that is keeping you low ranked is rotating too far back. A lot of players think they need to rotate all the way to back post even when the ball is still in midfield. This is way too passive because you're leaving your teammate alone in midfield, which means he has to defend by himself. Instead, you need to stay within range of the play so that you can challenge when necessary. If your team still has pressure, don't fully reset at your position. Be ready to follow up. Guys from the future here, I just launched a month-long program where I use my experience as a 12-time SSL to create a tailored plan that focuses on your weaknesses. That way, we can fast-track your improvement together. And there's only 12 spots left, so if you're serious about ranking up, click that first link in the description of this video to secure your spot. Let's get back to the video. The second bad habit is rotating behind the play instead of supporting it. When your teammate's moving forward, you should be shadowing their movement, not just driving back to net. If they get a 50-50 or make a pass, you need to be in a position to follow it up immediately. Too many players over-rotate or reset too far back, which leaves them watching the play instead of being involved. And the third habit that's keeping you low ranked is the boost over ball mentality. How many times have you left the play to go grab a big boost? Probably more times than you can count. And hey, I'm guilty of it too. If you leave your team to go grab the big boost, all you're doing is just putting yourself out of position. The higher ranked you get, the more often players will punish you for going for boost over ball. Instead of leaving the play to grab the big boost, try to stay active in the play, grabbing small pads. Here's how to fix your rotation immediately. Number 1, if your team has possession, never rotate all the way back. Always stay somewhat close to the play, that way you can help out if you're needed. Number 2, follow up on challenges quickly. Don't reset to a full defensive position unless you absolutely have to. If your teammate goes for a 50-50, expect the outcome of that 50-50 and be there before the opponents are. And number 3, be smart with your boost. Stop making full field rotations just for a 100 pad. Use small pads and stay in the play. When you fix your rotations, the game will feel way easier because you'll be involved in every play instead of constantly having to react and recover. You'll get more scoring chances, make more saves, and control the game, all without improving your mechanics one bit. The second thing holding you back is bad challenges. If you're constantly getting beat to the ball, losing 50-50s, or throwing yourself out of the play, then it's not your mechanics. It's your decision making when challenging. Every challenge you take in Rocket League either keeps your team in control or completely gives away possession. When you challenge at the wrong time, you're not just losing the ball, you're putting yourself in a bad position. A lot of players rush challenges without thinking, assuming they need to play fast, but speed isn't about throwing yourself at the ball. It's about knowing when to challenge and when to fake. If you can recognize good versus bad challenges, you'll instantly stop giving away free goals. One of the most common challenge mistakes I see is diving for the ball as last man. If you're last man back and you're challenging without thinking, you're essentially just giving your opponent an open net. Instead of just rushing in and hoping for the best, you need to position yourself in a way that forces your opponent to make the first move. If they flick early or lose control, that's when you go for the ball. But if you dive in blindly, you're just giving up free goals. The second mistake is treating every challenge like a true 50-50 when that's just not the case. A lot of players don't realize that not all 50-50s are equal. If you're challenging from a bad angle or with poor positioning, your opponent has all the control and that 50-50 just turned into a 90-10 in their favor. Instead of flipping into the ball mindlessly, you should be thinking about where your opponent is and how you can angle your card to at least neutralize their play or even win possession. Another really common challenging mistake I see is people challenging when they should be fake challenging. The higher ranks you get, the more players will start to predict your challenges. If you just rush in every single time without mixing it up, you just become way too predictable. Instead of blindly diving in, sometimes the best play is to shadow defend or fake a challenge. Just making your opponent think you're going to challenge can sometimes be enough to make them give away possession or have a bad play. If you can start mixing in fake challenges, you'll not only win more possessions, but you'll also make defense way harder for the opponent. So how do we actually fix our challenges and stop giving away free goals? First, be aware of your position before you challenge. If you're last man, you can't just dive in for that ball unless you're 99% sure you're going to win that possession. Second, think about your opponent's best options. If they have full control of the ball, don't dive in for it. Instead, position yourself in a way that covers the best possible play. If they're looking to flick, be ready to block it. If they're looking to take it low, be ready to block that too. And finally, throw in fake challenges. If you challenge the same way every time, they're going to know exactly how you're challenging and they'll just counter it. Sometimes acting like you're going to challenge can be enough to make them make a mistake. And the third thing holding you back is not adapting to your teammates. It doesn't matter how good you are mechanically or how smart your rotations are if you aren't in sync with your teammates. A big issue I see is players trying to force their playstyle no matter who they're partied up with. If your teammate is playing aggressively and you're playing aggressively too, all that's going to do is lead to you guys overcommitting. On the other hand, if your teammate's passive and you're also hesitating, this is going to lead to giving up too much space. You need to be adapting to what your teammates are doing and playing the half that they aren't. The way to do this is by reading your teammates' tendencies early on into the game. Pay attention to how they challenge, how aggressive they are, whether or not they like to pass or if they prefer solo plays. This way you can position yourself to complement their playstyle instead of always being in their way. Another issue is positioning yourself like it's 1v1 and not trusting your teammates to make a play. If you're sitting way too far back while they're pushed forward, you're removing yourself from the play and making it harder to keep pressure. But if you're playing too close and cutting them off, you're just making things awkward and creating unnecessary risks. Good spacing is what allows your team to rotate smoothly and keep things consistent. And finally, you need to cover your teammates' mistakes instead of just ignoring them. If your teammate has a bad touch or completely whiffs, you can't just keep pushing forward like nothing happened. You need to be ready to cover for them. A simple adjustment in positioning can be the difference between conceding a free goal and keeping the play alive. The key takeaway here is Rocket League isn't a solo game. Even if your teammate isn't great, you can still adjust your positioning and your rotations to make it easier for both of you. When you start to play around your teammates instead of fighting them, you'll notice your games feel way smoother, you win more close matches, and ranking up just becomes a whole lot easier. At this point, you should have a pretty clear idea on why you've been struggling to rank up. It's not your mechanics, it's the way you rotate, the way you challenge, and how you adapt to your teammates. If you're constantly out of position, you're going to feel like you're always reacting instead of controlling the game. And if your challenges are bad or predictable, you're just giving your opponents free goals. And if you're ignoring your teammates instead of adapting, you're making every match harder than it needs to be. The good news, these are all things you can fix immediately. You don't need to spend hours grinding mechanics in free play. You just need to start thinking about your positioning, your decision making, and how you approach every game. So here's what I want you to do. In your next few games, only focus on these three things. Just focus on rotating efficiently, challenging smartly, and position yourself based on what your teammate is doing. If you do that, I guarantee you'll start ranking up faster than ever. That's all I have for you guys in this video. If you found this video helpful, make sure to comment down below and let me know what you thought of it. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.